Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Truth, Wisdom, Freedom Conversations. I'm Johnson, and I am your host. And I'm really excited to have Brandon Wescott here with me, who's actually up in Queensland, and he's from Sydney, and that's where we met. He's on a little road trip away from all this Corona business. And hi, Brandon.
Hey, mate, how are you?
I'm well. And I'm happy that you're here to join me on discussing limitless potential and on unlocking that. And that's what the title of this particular episode is called. And so I met Brandon, I suppose 8 months ago now, and it was at a consciousness party, which was pretty cool. And we met where everyone was sober and people were doing various activities on elevating their personal development. And then we got to know each other on that little device that he's wearing there, that Healy, the microcurrent bioresonance frequency device. And we started talking and we found out that we were very much interested in similar things with personal development and whatnot. And as I got to know Brandon, he has a really interesting story. And so Brandon, he calls himself a quantum hacker, and he's also an entrepreneur. And he has this beautiful mission of helping to co-create 1 million millennial millionaires, which is awesome. And he actually started with his very first business, a 6-figure business that he created at the age of 16, which I think is definitely not normal. When I was 16, I wasn't doing that, right? So let's start there, right? Because just that alone is, what were you thinking at 16?
Well, to be honest, I was thinking of how can I be cool. To be honest, like the quality of the questions determine the quality of our results, and I kind of accidentally stepped into entrepreneurship. I didn't mean to. To give you some background, I was a shy, anxious kid growing up, so I didn't have many friends, and I was very introverted, very conscious of self, and not really connected to my environment. You know, I come from American Filipino cross heritage, born in Australia. I used to say, I'm confused. Where am I? Who am I? And yeah, that was an interesting period. Growing up was actually quite challenging. Just that alone, and not being able to fit into society or the social groups within school. And on top of that, I couldn't really exceed or succeed in class. I thought I was dumb. I thought I wasn't like everybody else. I thought there was something wrong with me. And so I had this innate desire to connect. And little did I know I was actually so disconnected from self. That was really what was going on. And I one day went to a party. I kept on going to these parties, but I went to this under 18s dance party. It was just like 1,000 people. And the social norms of being in that environment, for the first time I could be not like everybody else. I didn't have to be this identity that I was at school. And so me and my friends, the small group of friends that I did have, we were just running around, running amok, and we're having some competitions of how many girls we could kiss. And it was a ball. I was in class the next day, and I was just going over it with my friend. I was just like, how cool was that? It was the best time of our life. And because of this unification of people dancing, there was no focus on individuals. It was focus as we are as one, dancing to the music in unison, and everybody attention towards the stage and coming together and having that incredible experience. And I was like, how can we recreate that? We were like rattling things in our mind, like while math class was literally beginning. It's like, how cool would that be if it was on an island? Or how would that be if it was on a rooftop? Or how cool would that be if that was on a boat? And we kind of just looked at each other. We're like, let's do it. And we had no kind of limitation at that point. Like, there was no one telling you can't do this, because we didn't tell anybody. And we kind of just went and did it. We started a MySpace page and we got a flyer. It was crap. It was not the best.
Wow.
MySpace back in the day. Yeah. This is my first intro to social media.
I love how you took this desire within to connect and to belong, and you turned it into a passion and a hobby at 16, and then you turned it into a 6-figure business, creating parties on boats. That's amazing.
Well, it originally started off as 50 people, and then it became 850 people because of we attracted a business partner, and like it was just pure divine timing. It was the most eye-opening experience to me. Like this belief system that I needed to go to school to get good grades, to get a safe, secure job was all of a sudden done. And I was like, wait, I can make money with my mind. I was like, how cool is that? You know? And so I was addicted. I was hooked. Like I'm a kinesthetic learner. So anything I learn by doing. That's what I started to realize is that, you know, not everybody learns the way that we have been programmed to learn. School is just through rote learning. I get that that's how people learn, but that's just not for me. So,
and then you went on to create a 7-figure business after that. And that was a few years later because you got hooked on the entrepreneurial bug, if you will. And then that took you on a personal development journey by attending a Tony Robbins event. Do you want to talk a little bit about that progression and how your exploration of business led you into an exploration of who you are as a person?
Yeah, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, I find that when you step into an environment like that, you're going to start to set bigger goals. I've always realized that the bigger the goals we set, the bigger the setbacks we must endure. So when I started that 7-figure business, 9-figure business yet, but 7-figure business in the process, 7-figure business, it was purely just from this progression of going into the nightclub scene. You know, obviously, you know, dance parties, there was no drugs and alcohol around that point. But in this stage of my journey post school, I already started a photography business, and I was, you know, this is where I met my second business partner, and we were taking photos at under 18s parties, and he was older than me, as in he turned 18 6 months after I did. So he was already 6 months in the scene connecting. So he had a bunch of contacts. He pulled me into the scene. We're taking photos and then going out partying. And they were like, you should actually promote these nightclubs. And so we had 1 night, and we had 2 nights, and we had 3 nights. And we got offered to work at the most exclusive nightclub in Sydney. And then we started hosting that. We started to work our way up. And then I started to get headhunted for other people to run nights. And so then I started to train people how to do what I did. And then eventually I created this cascade of, built a team of 200 promoters over a 2-year period. And that's when I started to run multiple nights and really became, a minor celebrity, if you call it, in the space at a very young age.
And while this was happening, were there any mental or emotional roadblocks that you were coming up at? Because to achieve such high levels of success at such a young age, what was going on in your head?
In the beginning, I thought it was unstoppable because, I was coming into companies, I was just like adding $1 million plus in revenue to their bottom line, to their profit. And I thought I was the bee's knees. And so it wasn't until I started hitting roadblocks that I started to shatter this belief systems and patterns and programs of what was actually driving me. Between the age of 19 to 23, I thought I was good. I didn't know anything different. I was heavily into the drugs and alcohol, but that was just my scene. It's like a fish in water, right? You don't know until you actually come out how much you've been surrounded by this environment. And so, it was ubiquitous what I was swimming in terms of the toxicity. A lot of things I was doing, the habits, weren't really benefiting me long term.
So what was the impetus to finally wake you up to step more into a more aligned mission, aligned purpose? So here you are finding all this success, drinking a lot, partying a lot, going into drugs, but yet it's quite successful. But then something snapped you out of it and you switched gears. So how did that happen?
I wasn't fulfilled. Like deep down inside, look, I was trying to put all these things on from the external, and therefore it was addictive. I literally remember watching this Start With Why and the 6 Human Needs as well. These 2 particular TED Talks, one by Simon Sinek, one by Tony Robbins. And I discovered my driving force. My number 1 driving force out of the 6 Human Needs was significance, certainty, and love and connection. Like, because my mentor was saying, you need to go all these kind of seminars, learn sales and learn this, because he learned sales and he went to seminars. So naturally, as a byproduct, I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Went to Jordan Belfort, went to Tony Robbins, and I started to figure out what was driving me. And I realized why I was so addicted to this scene was because I craved significance from the external, from a lack of certainty within myself. And therefore, I just desired that love and connection. And that was driving me in all my business ventures out of a wound of not feeling good enough.
Let's talk a little bit about lack and lack-based belief systems and how that can drive us into something that is not as fully as aligned as we could be. And I think especially now with the global climate, that most people are approaching their life from a place of lack. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough love. I don't have enough things. I don't have enough security, physical safety, or otherwise. So how do we step from a place of lack-based belief systems, which is very much another word for saying fear, into one that is faith-based, one that is certain in the uncertainty? Because that really is it. If we can shift that perspective, then you can blossom and grow in your business. You can blossom and grow in your work if you're working for an organization, in your personal life. Because people like you, who I've come across during COVID, you're not affected in the way that I see how most people are, because you're making the choice. This is what I see in you. You're making the choice and the choices to take your own path. So maybe you can illuminate the viewers who are watching this on what some things that you've been doing and what you hold to high value for yourself.
Yeah. Well, you see that within me because it's within you as well, of course, just for starters. But also, yes, it is a choice at the end of the day. Look, how, and I've come across it, tremendous internal crises that manifest in the external. And one of my favorite sayings that kind of like just came as a download post these experiences and looking back and seeing how far they actually took me: chaos is crucial to create consciousness. It's one of my favorite lines. I was just like, I got to write that down, because that was not from me. That was from something above, whatever you believe. And that was a download that came from the effect of having been at such pivotal low points in my life, to the point where I was incarcerated in New York for having, possession of drugs, which is now I'm very comfortable with saying that, because it woke me up. It woke me up because the pattern of pleasing that got me into that jail cell in the first place, the psychological jail cell that I was living in to please other people and be all around us, it became real. As we start to make these decisions, these big lofty goals, like I was like, I want to be a billionaire by 30. And like, that was an ego talking, but that was like some of my goals. I still hold true. I was thinking to myself not too long ago, I'm like, man, like all these failures and burnouts and all these kind of like things, the twists and turns that felt like I was going around in circles, actually brought me to this point where I am right now. And I couldn't learn to appreciate this if I hadn't gone through that in the first place. So everything happens for a reason. It sounds so airy-fairy, but it's so true. It doesn't feel like it when your back's
getting
up against
arrested.
the wall. Yeah, getting arrested, or there's people that are going through worse. I feel like I've had some first world problems. I feel that privilege, number one, is the new poverty. There's so many people my age. It's why I want to awaken an entire generation, because so many people are spoon fed. That so many people are like, it's so easy. It's so easy to take government fed money. I refused to actually take government funding throughout this period. And this is just my own personal opinion. Excuse my French, I'm not shitting on anybody who is actually doing that because they need it. But me, with my entrepreneurial spirit, I know that if I take that cash injection, I'm going to feel as though I'm fed, I'm spoon fed. And therefore I don't have to go out and hunt.
There's a level of complacency with comfort. And unfortunately, kind of like what the Buddha says, life is suffering, right? Yeah. Which doesn't necessarily mean, oh, boo-hoo, woe is me. What that means is that we learn the most from our greatest challenges. Yes, we can learn through ease and through graceful means, but that's not always the case. There's something in the human psyche that learns through adversity. And so I love what you said about chaos is crucial to create consciousness, because you see that in something very simple from pain in our body. When you have a pain in your body, let's say my sciatic injury that I got from dancing, jumping too hard, too fast, not warming up. Let's say I chose not to listen to that pain in my body and I kept dancing. right? Then I would have hurt myself. Or I could have taken that pain as a signal as, whoa, wait a minute, slow down, you're moving too fast. So we always essentially have two basic choices. Do you take that pain and turn it into something useful? Or do you ignore that pain, numb it, and hurt yourself even further by being blindsided to it?
Yeah, I like 100%. One of my favorite quotes that was in my high school dormitory at year 12 was, "Pain is temporary, pride lasts forever." And that stuck with me because throughout the entire period, like, yeah, you're gonna experience pain. You're going to, regardless. But pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. We choose to suffer. We choose to buy into lack. We choose to buy into the limited point of view. And this is one of my favorite mentors. And the first thing he said to me was, "Brandon, circumstances is not the cue to mastery. Mastery is the cue to circumstance." So most people are looking outside. They're looking at the circumstance and then they're making the decision as to how to live their life. It's like, oh, well, this is happening right now, in terms of the pandemic, and that means I can only do this, and that means I need to do this, and this is how I need to live. And I mean, I was living in Sydney, and I'm still paying a lease, and my logical mind says that, well, I shouldn't be traveling and going places because that's spending a lot more money. That doesn't make logical sense. Brandon, why are you doing this? But to me, my mission is more important than money. My mission is more important than commission or, a lease that's holding me down. I want to unlock people's potential in a world where people are being locked down. Literally, again, like there's this new second wave. I'm like, well, yeah, it's the second wave of consciousness. Yay. Let's go to the people. This is now the time. I was thinking about it last night because I hear all my friends getting it back in. I keep coming back to the government scheme because it's so recent. And I guess it's so relatable right now. But for me, if I was to take it, I would buy into lack. I would be buying into the lack that there is no more money out there. Therefore, I need to take whatever is left. There's not enough. There's not enough. Got to get what you got to get. Quickly, quick, hold on to it. I'm like, no, I'm going to invest. I'm going to invest my time, energy into the solution, because the problem is, problem well stated as problem half solved. When we know what the problem is, well, I know I've got problems. We all got problems. But once you see the other side of it, like, well, that's when you can start to alchemize these certain situations. With alchemizing these certain situations, then you are empowered to make a different decision that you've been making before. Oftentimes, most people are living through the lens of the past. And so by having the self-awareness to know where you're exactly coming on, having a review of what decisions are driving you will determine quickly where's your attention. Is it fear? Is it lack? Or is it faith and abundance? And I guess people have to have an experience of that. I'm half American, right? So I love the American hustle. I lived there for 6 months. Everybody's encouraging you to do 3 jobs and start this business. Everybody's excited about that. But here in Australia, if you start a business, people cut you down. It's ingrained in our culture from the very beginning, from when the prisoners came along. And if anybody acted out of line, everybody got a beating. And so it's literally called tall poppy syndrome, where if you act out of line, if you act out of the programming of what you think you need to do, well, then everybody else gets cut. So I think now more than ever, people are open to creating a secondary income source, because that safe, secure job is no longer safe. No longer safe. That degree that you invested into is no longer relevant. To me, I feel like it's an experience. I could tell you the word abundance. A lot of people talk about this stuff. It's like, oh, you just got to believe. You just got to believe. But until you have the experience of your belief carrying you, and this is the structural foundation of how the internal world will govern the external world. Structures create outcomes. Until you have an experience of a higher structure being able to allow you to build a life that you want to live, and then you reap the rewards of that seed being planted, all of a sudden it has integrity.
Let's talk a little bit about this higher structure. So I would define the higher structure in the lens of myself and how I live my life as a higher energy that governs more than me. So it governs the way that the world works. Some can call it God, some can call it source, some can call it the universe. And so when you say higher structure, what do you mean?
Well, I was actually going to go straight there, but I mean, obviously you you know, of course your audience would know, that is the highest structure there is. And that's an interesting conversation in itself, God.
So when you're talking about abundance and generating abundance, not just materially on the external world, but from an inner sense, you're saying that you are always governed by the why. Another word for that could be purpose. It could be this higher structure. It's God, it's source, and that you're always moving from that place. And that's what gasses you up. That's what sends you forward into the world, right? And so long as you're always in that place, do you feel that you're always taken care of? Because you have that unshakable faith that all is going to be fine, even if it doesn't appear to be so.
Yeah, look, faith is a muscle that needs to be exercised. We can all get a sense that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, or are we human beings having a spiritual experience? And
I have an opinion on that, but you go first.
Well, I feel we're spiritual beings having a human experience. But just because you say that, until you have the experience of that experience, we'll always associate as this. We're just flesh and bone. But when people, like I hear people all the time, they're like, oh, I need to find myself. I don't know who I am. Like, they think that they've lost touch with who they are. But if that was true, then they wouldn't be here. They literally wouldn't be here. You are never not connected to your highest self, your true self, because it's always been there. Just like the universe around us, the land has always been here. We have always been here. Everything that we already want is already here, and now it's already being created. And so knowing that and believing that and actually exercising that faith of tapping into that and letting that come through. I wish I could say that I made all of this stuff up and I made all this happen, but I know that my GPS navigation system already knows the way. And so people want to figure it out. We want to figure it all out before it even begins. But how fun is that book if you already know how it ends? Like, how fun is that movie? Some people watch movies just for certainty that they've already seen. But if you already knew how this was going to end, would you want to live it? Like, no. So I guess the whole point of this whole process of life is to find ways to live in the present moment, because that's all we have.
In shamanism, we have a saying in my lineage in particular, it's keeping a secret from yourself. And that we have all come into this world on some level with a level of forgetting what happened, forgetting why we're here, so that we can rediscover that again. Because there is a joy in experiencing something for the first time. And it's very much that, isn't it? How do we always come back to things that we already know, like you said about your GPS navigation system? It already knows, it's being guided, it's being taken, things are going to sort itself out anyway. But we get in our own way because our egoic identification with what isn't important, with what isn't really necessary for our fulfillment, that takes over, because we want to control and we want to put everything in a certain way, right? I love what you're saying about coming up from this top-down approach of this spiritual experience and bringing that down into the human or earthly experience. And then I would add to that and go the other way too, because it's both. It's a two-way street. Because then some people go the other extreme and they forget, and then they're living in la la land all the time, right? And then then that's not useful. So it's the in-between, where we're spiritual and earthly beings all together at once. And I think that's what's really scary for some people that are more stuck on the earthly side, the human mundane experience, because they're afraid of what lies on the other side. And the same goes the other way around, but that's more of the minority, right? And so it's like, how do we all as a society come to this middle point where we can experience all of it? And that would be universal abundance, if we can all resource from that place. So what are some inspirational things or books or people that you're listening to right now? What excites you the most at this point right now?
Mm. Well, self-development wise, there's a bunch of books I brought with. Brought like half my library. It definitely looks like living on the road for the rest of the year at least. And so I've taken a bunch of books with me. The one particular book that has really impacted me, as soon as I got it, I read it in 24 hours, and it was inspired by the mentor I'm actually. He's been teaching me a lot about structures, and was referred to by my other mentor, and he was the catalyst to this book. It's called The Magician's Way. I've been playing with the whole magic and how this whole magic trick that we've been taught to believe is real. And once you start to know what's behind the scenes and how the magician works the stage, you can literally start to bend reality at will. I love entrepreneurship, and there's this whole hustle and grind element to it. And I have the ability to go there just as much as you and probably all your listeners as well. We have this ability to grind, but at some point there's a different stage. There's the phase 1, which is force, and there's phase 2, which is flow. When you shift from hustle versus alignment, when you just know what it is you want and things come to you easily and effortlessly, what I'm really excited about is documenting these things for my own life. Whoever wants to watch, that's cool, but just to see what's really possible, to embody that. I'm day 9 on a water fast right now as we speak. The second water fast that I've done this month. In the last month, I've done 18 and a half days of just water. That's really shown me what's possible in terms of how much we store, trauma in our body, and how that's related psychosomatically, and in terms of thought and toxins and trauma, like the 3 T's. And so these are things that I've been kind of just feeling into and pointing the finger back at me. Like, whenever I tell someone to do something, I'm like, well, no, like, embody that, and people will just do it. So really my number 1 priority right now is being the leader I need to be, and building an army of leaders, an army of conscious leaders who are not trying to fight the good fight out here, because we see so much of that right now. We see so much, we're just so divided. But that's just a reflection of what's going on inside. For more than ever before, it became so clear to me at the start of the year that we need leaders who are doing the work inside, who are fighting the fight. They're already fighting inside and overcoming that, and stepping into that warrior energy so that can show up in the world in the way that we need people to show up in the world, because the world has enough wounded leaders. Like, just look at politics. There's not enough unification, and when we unify within self, we can only reach and connect and unify with people to the extent that we've unified within ourselves. In terms of like just everything else that we're doing, partnering up with world leaders, we've got some really exciting stuff coming up with here on the Gold Coast. Started off as Broth Night, we're now calling it Reunite, and we've partnered up with the Love Out Loud movement, and we've partnered up with Buddha Bar to bring this incredible experience of unification. It's kind of full circle to see that there's this ecstatic dance element where people can dance in unison, that people breaking bread over broth, and then there's the conscious conversations around what I loved, which is really just the passing of knowledge to begin with, is the campfire effect, and how there's no dictatorship within the Love Out Loud movement. And Nicole Gibson, who's the person who spearheaded this movement, she was at 19 advising the mental health minister of Australia, and she's helped over hundreds of thousands of people with her movement. So people like this, when we start to come together in this campfire effect, that's when we're going to see true change. That's when we're going to see true change.
I love that. It's super inspiring listening to you speak about everything that you are bringing into fruition in alignment with your soul's purpose and your mission. So I know we can talk about this on and on and on forever ad nauseum about spirituality and entrepreneurship and abundance, but of course we do have to end eventually. So let's end this with maybe some top 3 things, pieces of advice that you might give to people who are a little bit stuck in lack and scarcity and fear, even if they are conscious leaders or they're managing teams or working in organizations, or maybe they're trying to step into entrepreneurship? And how can they leap into a place of unlimited potential? What are the top 3 things you would advise them to do?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question in itself, because at every level there's another devil. So like I said, chaos is crucial to create consciousness. You're always going to, whenever you get to a certain level, life is not linear. Life is not linear. Life is a series of ups and downs. But if you look at it from the macro, if you're growing enough and you're actually putting your energy towards what aligns you enough, clarity will never come up front. It will come on the journey of discovering who you are and being your best possible self. My mentor always taught me there's 3 phases, right? There's the wounded self, and then there's the best self. Now, to get from the wounded self to the best self, you are going to have to you're literally fighting your wounded self. And it's a period of back and forth. And when you start to step into best self, a mission will start to unfold. Most people coming into business like, oh, what's my mission? My mission statement. And you think you know what your mission statement is, but you haven't taken enough action. If you haven't actually gotten the clarity, you embody that, where you can just speak it into existence, and it will come to you. It will come to you. This, I'm referring to this. I'm putting my hand up like this for the people on audio, is your higher self already knows. And so like by taking that guidance, you will start to uncover the patterns, but then you'll start to listen to the mission, so long as you start to step out of the wounded self, because we associate so much. So my 3 tools, I've actually got it written on my wrist, on my forearm actually. It's like believe, manifest, work. It's my 3 steps to create a vehicle of change, a vehicle of limitless possibility.
BMW.
BMWs, yeah.
Believe, manifest, and work.
That's your vehicle for change. I was just like, you know, my initials is Brandon Mario Wescott, is BMW. I was like, what does that even mean? And it just came to, it's just one of those things. It just came to me, you know, and when you're open to that, the most expensive thing in the world is a closed mind. So when you're open to this kind of stuff and you're being the observer, it's kind of like meditation, observing the thoughts. We have 100,000 thoughts per day on average. Who's to say that those are yours? Who's to say that it could be society's thoughts, it could be grandma's thoughts, it could be your mom's thoughts, it could be your brother's thoughts, it could be your friend's thoughts, you know, that you've decided to take it on board. And so when we filter out reality, we've got 16 trillion bits of information coming to us every single second. What we can grab onto is 2 to 4,000 bits of information per second. That raises the question, what's reality? Well, reality is what is real to you. So these are the beliefs, the stories and the beliefs that we tell ourselves, that we've latched onto the information, and then therefore that's what we filter out. Perception is merely just a form of projection. We project out who we actually are, and that will manifest. Believe, manifest, and then most people are so associated to that story that they will work till the day they die to make sure that they hold the fort on that identity, the person that they see themselves. You know, it's like the Buddhist principle, be, do, have. Being is just your identity. Doing is just behavior. Behavior. You will never do what out of alignment what you don't think you are. I'm not that kind of person, Johnson. I don't do that. I don't ride on motorbikes, so I don't jump on Facebook Lives.
I never trust people who say I never.
Yes.
I would never say I never, because I would not know if I were like, I don't know what I would have done during Nazi Germany. Who knows, right? Never say never, because there's always a sliver of a possibility that something will happen, and you don't actually know until you're put into that situation, right? And so it's a perception, like you say, it's a limiting story. I love that. BMW.
There you go.
Guys, believe, manifest, and work. So, well, thank you so much for your time and your insights and sharing your personal story and your inspiring journey of helping to inspire 1 million millennials who are going to be millionaires. That's pretty awesome. I love that mission. Keep doing what you're doing, and it's lovely talking to you, and I love talking to you and spending time on the phone with you and doing this kind of work with you. If you guys watching or listening want to learn more and follow Brandon on his journeys for the rest of the year, his Instagram is Brandon Wescott, That's with 2T's.com.au, brandonwescott.com.au. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Johnson. It was a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.
Soon.